Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to this extendo webinar about how can we best implement building logbooks across Europe. And we are going to share experiences from our extendo project. My name is Zsolt Tots. I'm a senior project manager at the Building Performance Institute of Europe, and I will be your host and moderator today. I should start with saying that this workshop is taking place against the background of certainly some outstanding circumstances, but I think that just makes the topic of our discussion today even more relevant, because it's very clear that with carbon neutrality goals, or simply just having a more sustainable building stock, the building logbook will have a very important role to play. Be that energy efficiency, or be that just energy security, or just preventing us from energy rises. But as we will see, the building logbook is much more than just about energy efficiency and energy performance. Even if this was a particular angle of the extendo project, the logbook, as we are going to see, will have many specific benefits, both direct and indirect benefits for many stakeholders across the building value chain and the construction sector. So we are going to discuss about this with a distinguished list of speakers and panelists over the next 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So stay with us. But before actually going into the webinar, I just wanted to very quickly run through with you a number of housekeeping rules. So this is just to make sure that we will have a seamless participation from you as well. So we would like to invite you to pose your questions into the chat button. If you click the chat button, then the window will open up. So I would like to pose your questions here, because we would like to make this as interactive session as possible. And as usually, please mute yourself during the presentations, and Roberta and myself will keep our eyes on the chat. So we are going to collect all the questions that you are posing. If we can go right into the next slide, I'm going to present, to make a very short introduction about the extendo project, because this webinar today is actually one out of the 5 webinars, similar events we are holding this month. We have had already 3 workshops, and there is still 1 to go. So please make sure that your calendars are blocked. So essentially, this project is about looking and exploring additional features, additional metrics, additional indicators that can be attached to energy performance certificates, and in a way to inspire the next generation, the future generation of energy performance certificates. And you can actually see on the slides that we had explored 10 additional features. The ones 1 to 5 are, if you like, they are the more technical ones, and the ones numbered from 6 to 10 are the ones which are looking into innovative data handling, essentially looking at what sort of additional benefits and uses could be enabled if we will have a more consistent data availability, data gathering, and data management on the back of the existing EPC data. So in this category of features, is the building logbook. It's in a way, it's a natural place for the building logbook, being as a common repository of data relevant for the building. And if you like, it's more than just one of the feature, 1 out of the 10. It's I would argue, and probably the speakers who will speak after me as well, they will agree with the fact that building logbook is, if you like, it's a horizontal, it's one of the cross-cutting and most important aspect that then can be relevant to build other additional benefits and for value creation. So very quickly, let's look at the agenda then today. So we are joined today by Electra Papadaki from DG GROW, the European Commission, who is going to talk about the digital building logbooks in the light of the recent EU policy developments. Her presentation will be followed by Claudia Monteiro. She's from ADEN, from the Portuguese Energy Agency, and she's going to provide some insights about the lessons learned through this project. And she will talk about actually the experience of a working digital building logbook. And then we are going to be joined by Jörg Ostermeier. He's coming today from the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, and he will be joining the panel discussion for the remaining 40 minutes, whereby I will also invite your contributions. So without further ado, then I will just hand over to Electra. And as a very short introduction, Electra has been, as I said, she's working with the European Commission, with DG GROW, and she has been really active when it comes to promoting and developing and fostering digital building logbooks. And we have saw that there are quite a number of references popping up recently in various EU legislative texts. And I can just mention the Circular Economy Action Plan, the recast proposal for the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, the construction sector transition pathway. So there are a number of places again where the logbook is popping up. So would be very keen to hear the latest developments. Over to you, Electra. Electra, apologies. I don't think we can hear you. I think you are muted. We still can't hear you, unfortunately. Which is, of course, very strange because just before letting all the attendants to join this event, everything was perfect.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Now we can hear you. Excellent. Okay. So great. I hand back to you.
Yeah. That's all for the invitation and the introduction.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Yes, you hear me. Construction policy and the role of construction. This is where it's one very important project initiative that we are working on DG GROW. DG GROW, after a recent organization, it's broken down into 4 industrial ecosystems, one of them being construction. And well, we are about 15 working on construction specifically right at DG GROW and dealing with all of these activities that compose the construction ecosystem and their policies and initiatives like architectural and engineering services, operation of buildings, facility management, construction, renovation, refurbishment, demolition, site preparation, etc. Construction is a very important ecosystem, industrial ecosystem in economic terms, the second largest from the first in terms of people employed and value added. And of course, as many of you know, it is composed basically from SMEs, and 90% is even micro enterprises, a total of 5.3 million firms. When we're speaking about construction policy, we are referring to 6 areas, 3 principal ones being the green and digital and the resilience of construction, the twin transition and the resilience. In short, And under the green transition of construction, we are leading and following initiatives that aim at promoting circularity, mainstream the role of life cycle assessments, of course, deal with renovation, which is the big area right now that on buildings and construction as part of the European Green Deal. And of course, climate adaptation and mitigation and the role of construction to it, but also the role of adapting the built environment. In terms of digital, that I believe it's very important in the context of this webinar, we are discussing the limited data availability, sharing and use, and there come logbooks, the slow paper-based administrative processes, and challenges such as the low digitalization rates and investment in construction. Of course, we're dealing with other areas such as skills, resilience of industry, the framework of the single market enabling framework for the construction ecosystem to operate, and of course, issues such as the role of procurement in fostering innovation, the role of research and innovation through specific goals in programs such as Horizon Europe, and other funding and financing instruments that can become available for construction and buildings. The work on digital building logbooks from our side dates back a few years, but the most important milestone was the completion of a study named towards an EU framework for digital building logbooks, where BPIE and Zolt himself, he was one of the leading team players in making these proposals available to us. This study proposed an EU commonly accepted definition for digital building logbooks, which is not as easy as it may sound, because many times we see digital building logbooks having properties that can be closer to other EU tools or not at all. So the study defined the logbooks as the place where all data, information, and documents for a building can be accessible, as a dynamic tool that keeps a record for all events in the life of a building, as a way to improve transparency, trust, and informed decision making, and of course, as a tool that should be secure for the data owners, and where the data owners should have control over their data. On the same time, we have logbooks appearing in very important policy and legislative documents the last 2 to 3 years. Of course, in the renovation wave, there is the first recognition of logbooks as the repositories of data on individual buildings that facilitate information sharing within the construction sector, but also between other actors such as building owners, tenants, financial institutions, and public authorities. There is a highlight of the role of logbooks as the tool that will consolidate information available from other tools. Of course, we have a reference in the Circular Economy Action Plan in 2020, where a reference that I find important, because very often digital building logbooks are highly linked with energy efficiency, but their role and potential go towards circular economy, and they can really be key to enable circularity in construction, as they can promote and improve durability and adaptability of built assets by keeping information that is relevant to enable circularity. Of course, as very nice said, we have a reference in the EPBD and the need to link national databases for energy performance on buildings with logbooks. And lastly, in the latest staff working document, very relevant for construction, the scenarios for a transition pathway for a green, digital, and resilient construction ecosystem. So this is an exercise that starts in GROW and tries to make a mapping of all the policy and the legislative initiatives and as well the main challenges and opportunities in its industrial ecosystem. There we find, of course, the role of logbooks as key for the digitalization and the circular economy, but I want to stand in digitalization a bit more, because we see that if we could have a general adoption and deployment of logbooks across member states, we could really support data availability and sharing in construction and the built environment. The graph you see, I think it's the most representative of how we see the future of the logbooks forward. Again, it's part of the same study I referred to that's publicly available. So the role of logbook is to basically be the gateway to all of the data that we have available through different tools, through different databases, through different instruments, and basically make them available and of value to all different stakeholders. Of course, the construction industry is particularly important for us, but it is equally very important for building owners and tenants to be well informed about the qualities of their properties, for financial institutions, for public authorities, and of course other industries such as the real estate industry. Using the previous study as a base, we're preparing for a technical study that will take the recommendations forward. This study was it had an open call for tenders in the end of 2021, and now it's going. The tenders are going through evaluation. We estimate that it can start in spring 2022, and with a duration of 12 months, it will have, from one side, to basically give a technical continuation of the previous study, to look into detail to a dictionary for all building related terms, to analyze and propose data sets and databases that are of relevance for the building logbooks, to describe different processes of input and update of data and their verification, to design a semantic data model, propose a data management plan, and forecast also how new databases that are coming up and emerging technologies can interact and feed into the logbooks. The final product of this technical study will be a set of guidelines to authorities to mainstream the use of logbooks. In some cases, maybe come closer to the European proposal, in other cases set up from zero. These guidelines should include a strong case for the benefits of logbooks per stakeholder group, a step-by-step guidance for enforcement, should estimate resources for the rollout of logbooks, and of course identify risks and mitigation measures in the implementation. I stop a little bit from policy and I'm passing to another topic that maybe is interesting for you. On the same time with this initiative, we have made the funds available through Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2027 to allow further experimentation in the area of logbooks, and not only logbooks, we're also looking to other initiatives that are of relevance, like digital building permits. So right now, 3 projects on digital building permits are currently undergoing grant preparation. And on the same time, until 30 of March, there is a call open for the demonstration of the use of digital building logbooks for buildings that I believe could be relevant for you in our audience today. I think that is enough, and I'm going to stop right here and give the floor back to you, Zsolt.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Electra. Thank you for the introduction about really what building logbooks, the very concept of digital building logbooks are, as well as how they fit into the current thinking of the European Commission. And I would agree with you that quite a lot of conceptual background work has already taken place, but I think the necessary next step is actually to take this further and take this actually to the markets and to the end users. And this is what Claudia will soon talk about as the next speaker. She's going to share the experiences and the lessons learned from the extendo, specifically with developing building logbooks in Portugal. And then I was saying that the extendo project, of course, had a specific angle on energy performance and energy performance certificates. And we basically looked at the possibility of developing building logbooks, or if you like, building logbook ingredients, core parts, looking at the existing data available in EPC databases, EPC registries. And I think Aden is one of the poster boys or poster girls when it comes to EPC databases and data availability. So it was, if you like, a natural step for them to take this further. So over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Zsolt. I think you are already seeing my screen. Please confirm. Yes? Yes? Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. So as Zsolt was saying, my name is Claudia Monteiro. I'm a senior project manager at ADEN, the Portuguese Energy Agency. And today I'll be focusing in our feature 7 of the building logbook on the extendo project. Going just briefly, because Zsolt already introduced the project, as he was saying, we in the extendo project, we have this focus of developing a toolbox with 10 features for updating this next generation of energy performance. And of course, the focus is to provide the public authorities with tools to be able to bring these new data and new challenges to the next generation of energy performance certificates. And of course, today we will be focusing specifically in the feature 7 building logbook, but anyway, you can always visit us in the extendo.eu, our webpage, where you will find all the information about the project. The project is coming to an end in the summer, so you can always come and visit the project and see the outcomes that we are sharing there. Before I went through the feature logbook, and I think Zsolt already mentioned it in the beginning of this session, the feature logbook developed under the extendo project have to make this a short disclaimer. So our approach to the logbook was somehow limited to the innovative handling of EPC data, meaning that we had the goal to specifically develop logbooks alongside with the EPC and the EPC databases. Logbook can contribute in many ways to the creation of innovative services, business models, and so on, but we know that they are time and resources intensive tools, and therefore in the extendo project, we specifically looked at the logbook parts to be developed and how the EPC registers and systems at different stages of maturity can support the development of building logbooks. Nevertheless, it is important to highlight that this does not mean that we don't want to cover the full content of the logbook, and I hope that this webinar today and the discussion after the presentations can take us further in this topic. So, going a little bit into detail now in the core ingredients of the logbook strategy that we were working on in extendo. So in our approach, the logbook involved 3 core ingredients. So the first one was related with the data template, meaning the logbook should accommodate a wide range of data sources, data categories, which can include some examples, as you can see here, like administrative data, building characteristics, energy performance data, etc., etc., etc. So the idea is that the logbook should link with existing data sources and information tools. and could link, for example, with the smart readiness indicator, EPCs, sustainable ratings, and so on. It is important to highlight that the advancement of ICT technologies in the built environment will open and opens up the opportunities to collect new data sources, as for example, the installation of sensors or real-time energy use, IoT, etc. But will also bring some data privacy and security issues. So the idea is that the logbook is able to accommodate these all these questions in order to benefit the users of the logbook. Another thing that is important, and this is coming from our experience here in Portugal, not only in the X-tendo project, but also in other projects where we were involved, is that it is important that the logbook to be sufficiently flexible to adapt to the national or regional context of different countries. So it is important to do this, but also to integrate, to be able to integrate a wider European approach to allow to benchmark and to some interoperability or policy monitoring, etc. As the second core ingredient here is the ability to enable the functionalities coming from this data repository and the benefits that are associated. So the idea is that this could provide digital interfaces, interoperability between data syncing, matching, and storage of that information. And it is important to also to have a user-friendly navigation and visualization. Here are some examples of functionalities to be integrated with logbook as a digital repository update, naturally, but also to have the operation and maintenance plans, overview of building performance, again, the smart readiness indicator, information, some recommendations or roadmaps that can come also with the renovation passports, integration with BIMs, etc., etc. Finally, the third core ingredient that we highlighted here was the data governance. So this refers to the process, organizations and standards implemented to ensure that effective and efficient storage and access to the data, and the development and proper implementation of logbooks naturally require settling a series of questions around the data ownership, access, storage, privacy, security, etc. So it is as much data as we have here. It is also important to make sure that everything is taken care regarding the data security. For the test project, X-tendo trials 3 different logbook approaches with the objective to link the EPC data to other databases and data sets and solutions. And today, now I will focus a little bit more on the Portuguese approach to the building logbook, presenting also some recommendations that resulted from the testing phase. So now jumping into the Portuguese context, our building logbook is integrated in our portal named Casamay, that translated is somehow Casa Plus, that is actually a one-stop shop dedicated to energy efficiency. So the goal of this portal is to act as a property ID, which the idea is to facilitate the access of the homeowner to all building-related information, but encouraging the energy efficiency home improvements. So the idea is that this portal will facilitate the communication between the homeowner, the building expert that is issuing the EPC, and the companies and services suppliers, reducing the gap that might exist within the market and the homeowners. And the building logbook is our basis of work. It is integrated as a functionality of Casa Plus. So in these images that you are seeing here, you have the as the data suppliers for that they are feeding our one-stop shop and our building logbook, the homeowner itself, so we can input data into the one-stop shop, also the EPC databases, and also another databases that we have that is called Aqua Plus, that is a certification scheme similar to the energy, but for the water efficiency. Of course, this all data comes into the one-stop shop, where it is organized and presented to the homeowner. And here we also have the companies and services suppliers that can have access to part of this data in order to make proposals for renovation works that further the homeowner can accept and can request for these works, and then in the end to rank the works that were taken and give a score to the company that did the renovation works, ensuring some quality and some assessment also regarding the renovations that were taken. And then we also have some functionalities that are associated with the data that is coming from the building logbook that gives some advisory to the homeowner regarding not only the water efficiency, the energy efficiency, but also the certification and the auditing consulting. So it is, as I was saying, the building logbook, it's not only to present to the owner the information, but also is relating to some renovation services that we have in our one-stop shop running. So today I also brought here the top 5 questions that we made before we start putting live our building logbook, and I think this could be useful for others that are making the same path. So the 5 questions that we went through when we started was what type of data and data sources we want our building logbook to have, what is the rationale behind the data that will be collected, the data flow, what will be, how to link these databases to the building logbook, and how these data are stored in the building logbook. So data governance issues that we will care about. So going into the first question, what type of data and what type of data sources, as I was saying before. So we have 2 main data sources, suppliers, let's say. So the homeowner is the main one. So we have many data that is coming from him. So like the building information, if an EPC is not available, so like type of building or the construction period of his building, and also some occupant information about the type of use of the building, of the appliances, of the lighting, use profile of lighting systems, the number of occupants, the ownership. We have many fields on this topic, and also the homeowner can upload some documents that can be useful. Imagine if you don't have an EPC, for the auditor to get some information available as the house footprints or the building book. This is something that we have usually in Portugal in our registries, that has all the information about the construction of the building. And of course, if the building has an EPC or an Aqua Plus certification, the homeowner can give us the number and we can call the web services to automatically integrate the data inside the building logbook. On the other hand, we also have the companies that are bringing some data about their own services. This is important for us in order to be able to organize the categories of different companies to further help the homeowner to find the different companies to really take the renovation measures that are provided by the EPC or by the one-stop shop, the recommendations one, and to further be in contact with these companies to get proposals to move forward with the renovation. So about the rationale behind the data collected. So as I was saying, the building logbook as the goal, and I think this is the general goal of a building logbook, to have in one place only all the relevant data about the building, not only energy, but also other relevant data. So when you get into the Casa Plus, you will find this dashboard where you will have all the information about your house, so your house profile, your house documents that you uploaded, the energy certificate and all the information about it. And you also have this one that I'm highlighting here, that is My House Components. That was something that we developed and we put live through the X-tendo project. This My House Components has the goal of presenting the homeowners the information about the different categories of their house, the construction category. So the type of walls, roof, floor, windows, HVAC systems he has installed, the lighting information, the appliances, and also the renewables. And this is an example how this information is presented. So not we present not only the information that is available on the walls type, but also the information that is related to the energy performance of this wall. So the losses in the winter and the gains in the summer. So this is truly linked with the EPC information, and of course will be linked with the EPC recommendations for improvements. Another example of a functionality that we also associated to the building logbook through the extendo project was the consumptions monitoring. So right now the homeowner also has the availability to upload his bills on electricity, natural gas, and water. And he will have here all the historical information about his consumptions. And in the near future, we are we are trying to speak with the utilities in order to have this information automatically uploaded, in order to avoid the homeowner to be the person who has to introduce this data in the building logbook. And of course, this is very important because this will allow us also to link not only the physical recommendations on the building improvements with the real consumption energy data, and also the profiling of the user of this house. So the recommendations can be afterwards tailored in a more customized way regarding the building homeowner expectations and needs and real consumption profiles. And this is something really important for us. Regarding the data flow, so as I was saying, we have a lot of data that is coming in, not only from the web services, from the EPC, but also from the homeowner and from the companies. And of course, the majority of this data will feed what we call the functionality of the building logbook, that is this building dashboard that presents the data to the building homeowner, but it also feeds another functionalities that we have available in our one-stop shop, as for instance, the improvement measures proposals, the budget proposals that are coming from the companies, our energy saving simulator. So we have a simulator that is feeding from this data and producing some predictions on savings that can be made if the homeowner change specific parameters. It is also possible to request, not yet, but it will be possible to request an EPC through the one-stop shop. And also we have available the company's directory, so people can not only request information on proposals to the companies, but they can also search for companies here in our portal. Regarding the link to the database, the building logbook, as I was saying before, we always prefer to have an automatic way of collecting the data. It's easier, it's more reliable. We can implement data standards, etc., etc. So we are working mainly with the web services when that interoperability is possible. So we have already lived our web services to the EPC databases. And it is under construction, our web services with the Aqua Plus databases. And of course, crossing all this data will allow us to have a more complete picture of the building itself, of the systems that are installed, and also afterwards the preferences of the building homeowner regarding all these energy drivers. This is again another example. I hope I'm not getting too technical here, but this is another example how these web services work in our cases. So our EPC databases has more than 400 variables. And in our cases, we select some groups of variables that are important for the building logbook, as for example, the geographic results, the characterization results, the envelope results, the window systems, etc., etc. And every time we put an EPC number in the web services, it will give back all the information that is available and pop up the building logbook with this information. Regarding the data stored in the building logbook, what were our concerns in terms of data governance? Of course, the information security. So we had to implement some rules, as for example, only users with valid credentials can access to the building logbook and the web services. The user credentials, our username and password, are made available by us, ADN. And after authentication, users only have access to the methods they have authorization. So they, even if there is more information available, only if they have authorization, as for example, the companies, they only have access to part of the information and not to the entire building logbook information. And the same for the energy auditor. So despite the data is there, there are some constraints and some concerns in making the data available to the right persons that are having access to the data. And of course, the privacy policy. So there is personal data available in the building logbook. So it is important when people register to have this privacy policy, where they get to know very well what we are doing. So who is the person responsible for the data treatment, the data treatment legitimacy, the identification of all data that is treated, and also the treatment purpose. So why we are collecting these data. So I think this is more or less nowadays a very straightforward and common situation in the majority of our lifestyle. Just briefly going through the next steps on the Portuguese building logbook. So in the short term, we will, with the implementation of the newly revised DPBD, this will give authorization to ADNs to provide EPCs via Portal Casa Plus. This is very good because this will allow the number of buildings with registered EPC to increase. And this means that our building logbooks will be much more populated with EPC data, which is something really, really good. We will make alive the Aqua Plus web services. So right now it is still under construction. And this Aqua Plus database will provide the building logbook data on infrastructure, water using equipment, and fit outs of the buildings, as well as improvements measures on water efficiency and on water energy nexus. We are always organizing, and we will still do webinars and meetings with stakeholders associations that are representative of the building sector as homeowners, building experts, banks, services suppliers. So the idea is to continuously improve the building logbook and one-stop shop functionalities by listening the market and understanding their needs, the user needs. And of course, we want to accelerate the building renovation uptake and promote the step-tailored recommendation and improvement measures. So right now, our one-stop shop is very focused on the marketplace, and we want to invest more also in the advisory. So it is expected that we could, in the near future, link the building logbook with the renovation passports, where these step-tailored recommendations are taken into a much deeper level. Finally, I'm almost finishing. So results from the extendo user testing. We draw some recommendations on how to develop and expand existing building logbooks, namely by linking with the EPCs, that is the focus of the extendo project, but also with other one-stop shop functionalities. So one thing that is very important is to have a clear strategy to set up the data integration. This was key for us. And of course, when possible, reinforcing the link to EPC data. We know that the new the recast for the EPBD is now requesting all member states to have EPC databases available. So we believe this will be much easier now to implement this data integration. So it is also important to include data on building characteristics, the physical component, of course, but also to have some information on systems and equipment used, to have the behavioral component, not only the physical component associated with the information that is available. So somehow to connect the homeowner expectations and views with the physical component of the building where he lives or she lives. Of course, present data in a clear way. It's easy, these building logbooks, to become a big data example. So we have too much data and somehow lose the focus. So it is always important to categorize the information and present them in a very easy way for the homeowner to actually understand and make this data useful. Include as much as possible reference to allow the homeowner to compare his or her house information and performance with other buildings. And this is something that was specifically requested when we did the questionnaire to our homeowners. So they have no idea what this data means if they don't are able to compare with others. Whenever possible, reduce the need for the homeowner to upload data, so making data available automatically. This is much easier, more transparent, and also allows for the data quality management to be easier and better. And of course, enhance the data repository by linking the building logbook to other features, such as one-stop shop, renovation passports, etc., and to other functionalities such as tailored recommendation measures and available financing programs. So I hope you like. If you have any questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Claudia. I'm always excited when actually see a working logbook being developed and being already in practice. So I think this is a really, really good example to make clear of what could be done on the basis of the concepts that we just discussed earlier. I'm looking at the clock. We have roughly 35 minutes now for the last part of our of this webinar, which is the panel discussion. And I would like to again to invite your questions to our panelists, and I would like to also ask the panelists to turn on their cameras. And with that occasion, I welcome now Jörg Ostermeier as well, whom I have announced already that he is representing the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, which is an informal platform brought together by the UN's environmental program. And the Global ABC has a task force which looks into data and measurement, and it has also a specific task force looking into building passports, which York is chairing. So building logbooks are being discussed beyond Europe, actually. So with that, I would like to turn to you, York, because you've been waiting patiently in line. So just to share your reactions very quickly, and maybe just to reflect on how building logbooks could become like a living and dynamic instruments, which are really relevant for the various sectors across the value chain. And I'm always, in a way, I always like the metaphor that you use, that we are not building the new Facebook and Google, and essentially the attempt to monetize, collect vast amount of data and to monetize for the logbook operators, but quite the opposite. It's really to create value for the end users, for the homeowners, essentially give that data back to the homeowner. So with that, I just I would like to invite you to the floor and just share very quickly your reaction to what you have heard so far.
Yeah, thank you, George. You of course you took away my punchline there, but maybe as a general feeling, I share your enthusiasm every time I see a working logbook or some platform which actually really already offers a functionality. And I think the thinking that we all share in this context is that generally better data on an overarching level leads to better decisions. Not every day, but on a general level. So any kind of improved data availability, data transparency is appreciated. And we see a lot of countries and initiatives doing it in a very tailored way. But as I said, I always share your enthusiasm if I see something working, something going beyond a white paper. So that's great to see. I think a challenge that we are always seeing is that we are really talking about taking a sector from an analog age into a digital age, and a lot of things which are maybe only an annoyance or are even acceptable in the analog age are just not compatible to the digital age. We are not talking about quantum computing. We are talking about a digital age which only knows black and white. That is, a data point is a data point, and there's either a yes or a no, and there's a definition for a data point. And where we see digital logbooks often struggling is transforming or taking that ambivalence of the analog level or age where engineers and experts talk to each other, and there's even a certain ambivalence in talking to each other, moving that to the hard black and white data of the digital age, where a lot of things just need to be clearly defined, and that's where my feeling is where we are struggling, and where we only manage to go ahead step by step if we have these examples such as the one presented. We can only learn by doing, and therefore it was a very interesting presentation, an excellent approach, and of course the vision that we want to have in the room is really that, going to my other punchline, which I'm always bringing, is that we want to have building logbooks as the new smartphones for buildings, right? Where we have an aligned format and an app store, and people can plug in additional functionalities. And that's the vision that we're moving towards. And that's another reason why we need these examples to actually have an informed discussion on how to now, in the next step, create compatibility, how we can differentiate data collection, data management, and functionalities, and how we can provide a marketplace for these functionalities, and that basically closes the loop. While we don't want a proprietary Facebook-like business model behind building logbooks, but we want, or we need a certain stewardship or ownership also of policy of nations or on the Commission level on how the data platforms are supposed to look like, so that functionalities can be built on that. That would be my reaction. But I'd agree, it's an amazing example. I really liked it a lot.
Thanks, York. I think that's really great, and actually I can turn this around very, very quickly to come back to Electra, and ask the question whether she would share the same vision that you just outlined, York. So essentially have the smartphone and all the functionalities added as a sort of list of applications that you can buy from the marketplace. However, to have that common product, there is some sort of common framework, there is some sort of standardization that is required for in terms of data management, data semantics you have described, Electra. So I'm just wondering if you share the same vision and you share the same role of thinking about, what is the role of the European Commission in enabling the digital building logbooks?
Thank you for the question, and I share what York mentioned. Indeed, it is a complex thing to achieve, but we need to make data availability a common thing for buildings. It is really a pity that buildings and the built environment are so important to achieve all our environmental goals and all our digitalization goals. And then the data that we have available for a building are so few that we could do so many things. And we are even struggling to have an energy performance certificate in some cases. Certainly, we expect a lot from the market, and we don't see any initiative succeeding without offering the potential to extend these tools with other market applications. But indeed, I agree that the European Commission and the member states have an important role to play, because many of the issues that we're dealing with are sensitive. A lot of the data are owned by public authorities. There are a lot of issues of trust, of transparency, and the best way to reassure that we proceed in an ethical way is that public authorities are involved.
That's great. Thank you, Electron. I think the example that Claudia has brought up means that actually illustrates or demonstrates that there are solutions to these challenges. But at the same time, I'm monitoring the chat box, and there are two questions that I would like to ask Electra, if you can. The first question is to you, because you have outlined already the next steps in terms of the continuation of the technical studies that will provide hopefully the guidelines for member states to foster digital building logbooks. The question from the audience is whether there is an intention that logbooks are becoming compulsory at the point of sale or rent in all buildings in the EU, very similar to the current requirements that exist for energy performance certificates. So then essentially you could really take use of the logbook at the point of transaction.
Yes, thank you for this question. I think it's a very fair question. Look, I cannot say more than what is already available in our legislative and policy documents. In these ones, there is no obligation for logbooks, but I believe that it is shown very clearly that they are very important for the EU. Their interconnections with the future energy efficiency and performance databases are vast, and we can see it in the PPD recast. We see a recognition of the role as the tool, the digital tool that brings together all of the work that is done in EPCs, in SRI, and also helps. I'm sorry, energy. No. I have said so much jargon that I am confused. That also like fuels with data the renovation passports. So even if right now we are not having in paper that building logbooks have to be obligatory, we see that they are part of the picture. They are part of the picture that includes also some obligations to member states and some new tools that are coming up. So I think here we see a pattern that we see with other initiatives that the EU can propose more softer measures and an adoption in a voluntary basis in the beginning. But we hope that the usefulness of logbooks can make it its case for itself, and we can have really deployment in all member states.
I think that's very clear. York, you wanted to complement what Electra was saying. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
It's better, yes.
Reacting directly to, you don't know if it's better yet. Reacting directly to that, I think we need to differentiate between a transaction-focused market segment and a non-transaction focused market segment. And for the transaction-focused market segment, I think there is a tipping point. Would any of us buy a car without proper documentation? Well, maybe a really shitty one where it doesn't matter and where the transaction costs are neglectable. But the more money you invest, the higher your concern that you overlooked something essential, and you want an expert double checking whether you actually get value for your money. And the moment building logbooks are established and available, I think it will be very, very hard to have a good transaction without proper documentation. So there will be a market request and an incentive for people documenting their home properly in order to maintain its value and to get a good sales price. Now things look different in market segments which are not transaction focused. We work a lot with the typical first movers, social housing. They will never ever sell their portfolio. They are not interested in improving the value of their stock via proper documentation. They have very, very other or very, very different motivations to document their stock. So I think we need to work from different angles depending on the market segment. But I agree with Electra that there's a growing awareness of the opportunities we are having. I still think we are victim to a lot of illusions on data availability and easiness of grabbing data. I still see too many projects which are focused only around the functionality, and then you have a functionality without users because no user can provide the data to actually use the tool. And then you have functionality after functionality demonstrated again and again on the same 10 prototype buildings. So yeah, would be my 2 cents on that.
I would say more than 2 cents, but very nicely, yeah. Well, that very nicely leads me to bring back really the end user, the homeowner perspective to this. And because one of the questions received, or actually 2 questions received in the chat box are about this. And I would, as a reaction to what you said, York, I would add maybe a third question then to Claudia, is about really how to convince then the public authorities or the various data sources to share their data and be ready to integrate it with the building logbook. So, but before that, the 2 questions from the audience was, Claudia, if you could tell us how many building owners are currently registered or using the Casa Plus, and if you feel that building owners are interested in initiatives like this one. I mean, in other words, what are their reactions and are they aware of these benefits that we've been talking about? And these are not hypothetical benefits, I guess.
Thank you, Zoltan. Thank you for the questions. We have around 12,000 homeowners registered in our Casa Plus. I must say that the official launch was on March last year. So in about 1 year, we have about 12,000 people registered. I think it's a good indicator that people are getting aware and they are getting interested in this. Not all these people have an EPC, so this means that the communication that we are doing about the one-stop shop and the building logbook is working, not only through the EPC system, which is good news. Regarding the interested, if people are interested or aware of the benefits, we recently and under the Extendo project, we ran a questionnaire regarding not only the usability of the one-stop shop, but also the future improvements and also the impact that people understand that these actions can have in their daily decisions. And I can share with you some results from this questionnaire. So it was filled from, I believe it was about 500 people that filled these questionnaires. And the overall opinion was that that having this building logbook and one-stop shop, it is a very useful tool, something that they will use not daily, of course, but occasionally or monthly. We were quite surprised for having people saying that they will do a monthly use of the portal. And regarding their opinions, so they are aware of the benefits. We are having an issue that is not so much on the functionalities availability that we can have in the building logbook, but the market response. So with the COVID pandemic, the market really struggled to be able to have professionals working on the construction work and also to have materials, so the prices change a little bit. They don't have human resources enough to be answering to the demand. So many times it's not so much about people not be aware of the benefits, but the market not be prepared or properly prepared to answer to the demand that is coming from this type of services. So one thing that we have to try to work now, and also with the policy makers, is to, okay, we can have a great tool that people will use, but if on the other hand, the financial sector and the construction sector are not able to go with this flow and also to respond to the demand, it will be very hard to implement this type of tools in the field. So right now, the things that the drawbacks that we feel that are related is not so much with the information itself. People, at least here in Portugal, people share the data. So regarding you are asking for the municipalities, if it is, people are the data owners, so if they want the data to be available, the data will be available. So we don't feel that this is a barrier. We feel that there is some work that has to be done with the financial sector and with the construction market in order to be able to respond to the demand of the homeowners that we have registered in our portal.
Thank you, Claudia. Is there any quick reaction from Electra or York, or shall we move to another question? Strictly related to this, actually, it's a comment from the audience about the view of logbooks could become compulsory typically for public buildings, but a bit more concern about social housing and even more so about private buildings. And there is also a mention about insurance stakeholders who, in a way, very interestingly, they are missing, or very often were missing from conversations about the building logbook. So I don't know who wants to comment on this first. York, do you want to go first, maybe? Because you were nodding.
I can go first. I think which segment of buildings becomes the pioneer is a very regional decision. We know examples from the Netherlands where it's the social housing sector, because the government is very actively involved in this sector. I can imagine that in other countries, it's public buildings. It doesn't really matter. I think the situation where we're in is that we need to have reference cases whereby we can demonstrate the additional value generated by moving digital, because it will be painful in the beginning. You need to overcome a certain resistance when you approach people, building owners, on the topic of building logbooks. The initial reaction is always, it would be great to have it, but in order to get there, oh no, another data collection exercise. We all had to do these EPCs a couple of years ago. Yeah, you did it. Congratulations, talking for Germany now. You did it on paper. Great. Where is that paper? It's somewhere in a folder in the cellar. And actually, the thing you kept is not the full EPC, it's only the result sheet. So all you have from a many €100 exercise is one sheet of paper which says this building is a D. Well, yeah, the realistic message is, yes, you need to do it again. If you would have done it properly, you would have done it digital was a thing 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You decided to do it on paper. That was not a smart decision. You have to do it again. There's a pain involved. So only by having a rationale behind it, why you do it, what is the necessity, what is the advantage for doing it? Do I get access to green money? Do I get a cheaper insurance? Is it the only way to decarbonize? If you just come with a pain, well, that's not a good sell. You need to come with a benefit as well. And what sector that demonstration is easiest to showcase by, that's I think very country specific. So very hard to comment on that. On the drivers or the driving stakeholders, I agree, banks and insurance companies can play a very important role. They are often left from these discussions. On the other hand, if you want to have a very hilarious time, you get a couple of building owners and engineers and bankers in one room and let them discuss buildings. Because you do not feel two words, you feel two universes collide.
That's not hilarious, York.
So the one side talks about case by case, on experimenting, on user behavior, on uncertainty, and that's nothing the banker side wants to hear. They want scalability, a certain repetition, many of the same. So what the banker wants to bank and finance is not what the engineer wants to build. We are actually currently running a project which tries to bring these two worlds together and arrive at a common consensus on what the banker actually needs, in order to link green refurbishment in buildings with green money, because that is another hypothesis that we're working on in the GABC, is that digital building logbooks can be the meeting space for green projects and green funding, which needs a certain compliance. but we are, I think, in the early phase of that development. So again, coming to the beginning of my of my monologue, I think we need good reference cases. We just need good examples, and if we have a half a dozen good examples of a real value advantage and benefit created via a digital building logbook, people are willing to go through a valley of pain in order to get there. But at the moment, they only see the valley of pain. So that's the logical next step.
Well, hopefully these success cases, which I believe Claudia can share, or her presentation was about this, will convince Electra and her colleagues to invest more into this tool. Any quick reaction? Because otherwise we are getting closer to.
Maybe
Yeah,
I can
Electra,
give a
go
quick
on.
reaction, of course. Look, I cannot say who should go first yet. It's something that we want to study and look carefully into. But what I can say is that very often in consultations and when we discuss with different stakeholders and the public, comes as a very strong opinion that the public sector should go first, should walk the talk, should demonstrate that they're committed. And I think it's apart from arguments, it's also about morale. You cannot come to people and say you have to go through all this, but we didn't do it for our city hall that is 20 times the size of your house. So certainly there is this. Another thing I would like to say is that we shouldn't, how can I say, underestimate what can be done even in building projects that are not so fancy or modern. There is now the Affordable Housing Initiative that is trying to basically do a coordination of different stakeholders for renovation of affordable housing units. So there is the appetite to experiment also with digital tools. So we shouldn't exclude that the good case scenarios come not from where we expect them to come.
We'll be looking out. Thank you, Electra. And also I think it's really great that the building logbook has this promise in a way to bring together the value chain actors to start the conversations, because if you look at how many data users and potential data providers are or could be linked to the logbook, actually it could be really like a launch, like a springboard, if you like, to have those conversations that York was talking about. So I'm aware that we are running quickly out of time, and I should provide a wrap up to this exchange. But I will turn this around, and I would ask you to tell your wishes or your recommendations for the logbook, and maybe also in terms of policy needs and policy recommendations. Maybe you could also say a couple of words of what still needs to happen for this to become a reality. Who wants to go first? Claudia, maybe?
Yeah, well,
Great.
I would just think a little bit on what York was saying about the value. So if something has a value, this will be a great driver. And right now we have great accelerators. So for many years, the construction sector was called to pop up and to be aware about the climate goals and to make adaptations in order to be more aware of the issues that were raising. And as I was saying before, the financial sector is now on the loop. They are complaining a lot about this because they are seeing if they do not change their mindset to a green and to a more sustainable investment, their assets will lose value. So I would say the most important is to take advantage on this. So the financial sector don't want to lose their assets to lose their value, and of course this will put some pressure on the renovation work. So the construction, the buildings will have to improve to have access to green financing and so on. So I do think that the building logbooks are great opportunities because they will in one place, have all the information available and really reduce the bureaucracy and make available all this, not only for the stakeholders' perspective, but also for the homeowner. So it would be much easier for him to know what is the data that is available, what to do with this data, how to get financing for improving their house, and really have the work done. So I think that the most important thing, what I feel right now, is actually to involve these different stakeholders and see, okay, we have so many policies that are accelerating now, the renovation uptake and so on, and the building logbooks, of course, will play this major role, but I don't think it's no longer on the user willingness to change. It is also on in the supply chain. So I think the market needs to be ready to be able to respond to these needs, and the policies should also bring all these stakeholders together in a way that they can actually not only to their own farm, but see the whole picture and try to move forward with this. So yeah, and building logbooks, I think, will be the tool that will allow this everything to be together and to pop up and put everything going on with this information available. Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. Electra, I turn to you.
Yes, of course. Look, I think that our intentions for the next 2 years in policy are quite clear. From what I presented now and all the legislation and policy documents that we have in place show very well where we want to go. What I want to say, and taking the opportunity of this specific event, is that we really count on the innovation and the support and the ingenuity that can come from projects such as this one, from projects that are funded from Horizon, to take this concept forward, to experiment more, to show value, and of course the businesses to experiment even more and see what they can use out of these concepts to improve their products, to propose new products. This is the message I want to leave. It's not only a work of the authorities, but for this to be successful and to make sense, we need innovation and cooperation from every possible part.
Thank you, Electra. York, I will end with you. I think the message from Electra was very clear.
Even it's a difficult question, even though I now had a couple of more minutes than my colleagues to think about it. My biggest wish is that we use the opportunity that we have from learning from other big data platforms on what went well and what went not so well. And that brings me a little bit back to the example of Facebook. Every second stakeholder from the built environment that I talk to has a strategy on how to become the next app store. You talk to manufacturers who build heat pumps, and they want to collect data because, well, on the running on the energy consumption of the heat pump and make gases on the buildings, and they have this nice digitization vision where they are the next Apple or Google or Facebook or whoever. And of course, they think in a proprietary business model where data is one of their value propositions, and they basically want to repeat the success story of Google or Facebook from 25 years ago. They are 25 years late. The business model and the idea and the innovation from 25 years ago isn't working today, and it's not appropriate for today. And I think what we need to come up with is a setting in which we now create a Facebook for buildings while leveraging on the strength of what worked in these setups and not repeating the mistakes that they made. So I don't think we need a Facebook for buildings, but we need something similar in an improved and tailored form. We do not need a setting where everybody enters their building data for free and then the platform makes money behind their backs by trading building data. We need a response to that, which gives data governance to the building owner, and not in a way that they somehow theoretically have the right to execute their ownership over data, but actually they're able to. That's two very, very different things. I have my own right to the ownership of my private photos online in the web. I have a very hard time executing that. There's a hotline at Google that I can call. Well, good luck. So we need something different, and I think that is the very high level strategic issue which we need to address. And that if I need to formulate a wish towards policy making, that is the vision that I think we need, which also then makes it easier to convince people to buy into the overall idea. That's maybe a very abstract wish, but I think it's one of the most unresolved issues that we have. We have a very clear idea. We have an alignment on the strategic level on what the value of building logbooks could be. But this kind of vision, I think we need to be sharper and clearer on, and where we need to have more commitment from the policy level on what actually will be handed over to market mechanisms and under what conditions, and what parts of the overall puzzle are actually better taken care of under not-for-profit, maybe public control in a very diplomatic wording.
That's great. Thank you, York, which means that we actually became a full circle. We ended when we started off, and although we have showcased a number of developments and work taking place in this field, you rightly mentioned that there is still quite a lot more to explore, and there is also space and reason for policy interventions. And I think what is as you rightly said, I think probably one of the underlying message in this event was that for sure data and value are intrinsically linked, and in a way data has value and should have value. And the other one is that data about the assets is what creates value. And if you lose the data, you lose also or risk losing the value. So with that thought, I would like to thank you for your participation. It was really great. I very much enjoyed the conversation. I thank you also for the attendance and for their questions. And with that, I would like to close this webinar and wishing you all a good afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.